Peace be with you. Dear friends, welcome to Living Flame Podcast website and Facebook group. Gospel Reflections for Monday in the 16th week in the Ordinary Time. Gospel according to Matthew chapter 12 verses 38 to 42. Some of the scribes and the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." Now, why they wanted to see a sign from Jesus? In spite of all the signs that Jesus worked, well, they wanted to see greater miracles. They wanted to see a magician. They wanted to see a person who can do wonders for their own selfish purposes. Jesus says to them, saying that an evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign. What is the meaning of a sign? Well, according to Jesus, a sign performed by Jesus represents the coming of God's kingdom. But then when the Jewish people, Jewish leaders wanted to see signs, they wanted to see something that would provoke their curiosity. They could try to criticize Jesus. Jesus refuses to play their game. He does not work wonders on demand and especially not for skeptics. Their request reveals their evil intent and lack of faith. When Jesus says adulterous generation, this applies to the common Old Testament metaphor for idolatry. Again, Jesus rebukes this generation. In this context, he is looking ahead to increasing rejection by his contemporaries. The future tense will be with the same expression that what is going to happen to his own life. Jesus says the only sign he will give or provide, therefore, is the sign of Jonah. Jonah's languishing in the big fish for 3 days is a great sign. It's a parallel to the period of Jesus' death. But since Jesus would remain dead for only 3 days, the sign must include his resurrection as well. Indeed, the only sign the Jews do receive that differs from what Jesus has already done or taught involves his death and resurrection. Dear friends, this short gospel passage invites us that we have to renew our faith in Jesus, who gives us real food for our thought. This is Jesus' first unambiguous prediction of his death in Matthew, still not as explicit as it will become, and probably understandable only in retrospect. 3 days and 3 nights represent a Semitic idiom for any portion of 3 calendar days. So there is no need to see a contradiction with the tradition Holy Week chronology, including a Friday crucifixion and Sunday resurrection, or to propose any alternative chronologies. Therefore, dear friends, when we look at the teaching of Jesus and his rejection of the Pharisees and scribes' idea to have a sign, well, Ninevites repented and came back to God. And the Queen of Sheba, such Gentile, also will join with the believers of every time and place on Judgment Day to condemn all who reject Jesus. The fate of Jesus' contemporaries proves all the more tragic and ironic because the Gentiles in Jonah's and Solomon's time believe after hearing God's lesser spokesman, while this generation refused to believe even after hearing one greater. Who is this greater? Greater than Solomon is here. That is Jesus. We are so fortunate to have Jesus in our heart. We receive him in the Holy Eucharist. We pray that the Lord may accompany us with his wisdom and the power of resurrection in our daily lives to be his witnesses through the day and throughout our life. God bless you.